chemical properties of metals, chemical properties of non-metals, reactivity series of metals, ionic compounds, various concepts of metallurgy, theory and application of extraction of various types of metals. So all these points we are going to learn in this chapter. And in the previous module, we have already finished physical properties of metals and physical properties of non-metals. And in today's module, we will learn about the chemical properties of metals, reactivity series of metals, chemical properties of non-metals. So all these 3 points we are going to cover in today's module. Now let's revise what we have studied in previous module. In previous module, we finished physical properties of metals and non-metals. So let's revise it. Metals are hard except sodium and potassium. Non-metals are not hard except diamond. They are soft. Metals are in solid state except mercury and gallium. Non-metals are in solid or gaseous state except bromine. Metals have luster. Non-metals do not have luster except iodine. Metals are good conductors of heat and electricity. Non-metals are bad conductor of heat and electricity except graphite. Metals are malleable. They can be changed into sheet. Non-metals are not malleable. Metals are ductile. They can change into wire. Non-metals are non-ductile. Metals, they have high melting and boiling point, whereas non-metals, they have low melting and boiling point. Metals, they are sonorous. They produce ringing sound, and non-metals, they are not sonorous. So all of you have to remember the main points of the difference between these two metals and non-metals, and also you have to remember the exceptions. Wherever the exceptions are given, you have to learn them because they are important for 1 mark questions. Okay, now let's begin the chemical properties of metals. So metals, as we know that they are highly reactive, they lose electrons easily and become positively charged ions, and that is why they are also called electropositive elements. As you can see on the screen, this is a sodium atom. Sodium atom has electronic configuration 2, 8 and 1. You can see in the first shell there are only 2 electrons. In the second shell there are 8 electrons, and in the shell there is only 1 electron. So as we know that in order to complete its outermost shell, atoms they react, right? So here sodium atom, it loses its 1 electron in the outermost shell very easily, and because of loss of 1 electron of the outermost shell, now the sodium atom, it has only 2 shells. The first shell contains 2 electrons and the second shell contains 8 electrons. And because of which the balance which is produced because of number of equal number of protons and electrons in an atom is disturbed now, because previously in this sodium atom there were 11 electrons and 11 protons, because of which the positive charges and negative charges they are equal in number and they were balancing. But now here, because of loss of 1 electron, now this sodium ion, it has 11 protons and only 10 electrons, and because of which it has one extra positive charge. That's why one positive charge is shown here, and when an atom acquires a charge, it is called as ion. That's why here it is written sodium atom, it is electrically neutral, and here it is written as sodium ion because after losing 1 electron from its outermost shell, now it acquires one positive charge and it becomes now a sodium ion. And that's why it is also called as electropositive elements, or you can say metals, they are also called as electropositive elements because they form positive ions very easily after losing 1 electron. Okay, I hope all of you understood how the formation of ion takes place here. Now let's conduct an activity to understand the combustion of metals. For this we need apparatus. In apparatus we need pair of tongs or spatula, knife, burner, etc. Then in chemicals we need samples of aluminium, copper, iron, lead, magnesium, zinc and sodium. Now let's see the procedure. Hold the sample of each of the above metals at the top of the flame of a burner with the help of a pair of tongs or spatula. Now let's see the observation here. You can see Here, this is the experimental setup. This is the burner, and on the burner flame of the burner, we have taken the sample provided, whatever the metal is provided to us. Now, look at the questions. Which metal catches fire readily? The sodium metal, it catches fire readily. How does the surface of metal appear on catching firing? The surface of metal appear blackish or grayish in color on catching fire. Okay. Third question, what is the color of the flame while the metal is burning on the flame? See, I already told you in the previous lecture that different metal ions they produce color of different colored flames. Okay. Now look at here. Aluminium. Aluminium it gives silver white flame. Copper it gives bluish green flame. Iron it gives orange brown flame. And lead it gives blue or white flame. Magnesium it burns with white flame. Zinc it gives bluish green flame. And sodium it gives yellow flame. And that's why it is also called as flame test of metals, because different metals they give different colored flame on burning. Okay. Now we have to study reaction of metals with oxygen, reaction of metals with water, reaction of metal with acids, and reaction of metals with salts of other metals. So all these four types of reactions we are going to study in chemical properties of metals. So now let's begin with the first type, reaction of metals with oxygen. Now, as you can see here on the screen, metals they combine with oxygen on heating in air, and metal oxides are formed. So, whenever we are burning anything, or you can say whenever we are burning metal, that means during burning it combines with oxygen and it forms a metal oxide. Okay. Now let's see the first one. Sodium and potassium. They are very reactive metals. Sodium and metal they combine with oxygen in air at room temperature and form sodium oxide. You can see the reaction here. Sodium it is solid in state. Oxygen gaseous is in state. When both of them they react together, they form oxide. Okay. We have to remember the reaction here. Now, on exposure to air, sodium readily catches fire. As I already told you, sodium and potassium they are highly reactive. So if we keep them openly, they easily catch fire. Therefore, to prevent accident in the laboratory or elsewhere, it is always stored in kerosene. You can see here, sodium metal is stored in a kerosene bottle so that it should not react or it should not cause any fire. Okay. So oxides of some metals are soluble in water. They react with water to form alkali. As you can see, this is sodium oxide. And sodium oxide, when it reacts with water, it forms sodium hydroxide, which is alkali, which is basic in nature. Okay. So in the same way, you can see here magnesium. Magnesium, it reacts with oxygen and forms magnesium oxide. You can see here, here the magnesium ribbon is burnt, and after burning the magnesium ribbon, what we can see, we can get a powder of magnesium oxide. And when we are going to dissolve this magnesium oxide in water, we are going to get magnesium hydroxide. This magnesium hydroxide, it is also basic in nature, because as we all know that when OH group is present in any compound, it gives basic nature to the compound. This is magnesium hydroxide. Okay. In the same way, we can write down the reaction of other metals with oxygen. As you can see here, zinc, when it reacts with oxygen, it gives zinc oxide. Copper, when it reacts with oxygen, it gives copper oxide. Aluminium, when it reacts with oxygen, it gives aluminium oxide. Okay, so all of you have to learn all these reactions. Now, metal oxides, they are basic in nature. As I said, all the metal oxides, they are basic in nature, whether it is sodium oxide, magnesium oxide, potassium oxide, calcium oxide, all of them, they are basic in nature. Except zinc oxide and aluminium oxide, which are amphoteric in nature. You can see there are some basic oxides given here. Potassium oxide, magnesium oxide, iron oxide, sodium oxide, calcium oxide, copper oxide. All these oxides they are basic in nature except aluminium oxide and zinc oxide. Both of them are amphoteric in nature. Amphoteric means They act as basic oxides as well as acidic oxides, depending upon the conditions provided in the reaction. Okay. So you have to remember here the amphoteric oxides. It is very important for your 1 mark question. So normally the question is asked, name the metal oxide which is amphoteric in nature. So you have to give the answer. Aluminium oxide and zinc oxide are the metal oxides which are amphoteric in nature. Other than this, other metal oxides, they are basic in nature. Moving on to the second type of reaction, reaction of metals with water. Metals, they react with water to form metal hydroxide and hydrogen gas. So always remember that sometimes it is asked that in the exam, which gas is produced when metals they react with water. So you have to remember the hydrogen gas is produced. Sodium and potassium metal, they react rapidly and vigorously with water and liberate hydrogen gas. You can see here the reaction. Sodium, when it reacts with water, it forms sodium hydroxide, which is a base and produces a hydrogen gas. Along with that, large amount of heat is produced. As you can see the reaction here, in a bowl, water is kept, and if you put sodium inside this water, it reacts vigorously with this water, and you can see the flames producing here, right? So along with this reaction, large amount of heat is produced. So you can say this reaction is an example of exothermic reaction also, because large amount of heat is producing in this reaction, right? In the same way, we can write down the reaction with potassium also. When potassium it reacts with water, it also produces potassium hydroxide, hydrogen gas is released, and large amount of heat is produced. You can see the reaction of potassium here in the figure. Large amount of heat is produced. So this reaction is also an example of exothermic reaction. Okay. Now let's see the reaction of calcium with water. Calcium it reacts with water slowly and less vigorously. The hydrogen gas released in this reaction collects on the surface of the metal. You can see the bubbles produced here. The bubbles are produced because of the formation of hydrogen gas. So when this hydrogen gas is produced, it collects on the surface of the metal and forms bubble around it, and because of this, these bubbles formed here, the metal it floats on the surface of the water. Okay, so you can see here the metal it floats on the water. Now you can see the reaction here. Calcium plus water, they react together and they form calcium hydroxide plus hydrogen gas is released. Okay, so in this case, there is no heat produced. It is not an example of exothermic reaction, because here the calcium reacts with water slowly. Okay, now let's see the other metals. The metals like aluminium, iron, and zinc, they do not react with cold or hot water. They do not react with all these elements. They do not react with hot or cold water, but they react with steam, or you can see the vapor of water, they react to form their oxides. And in this reaction also hydrogen gas is released. You can see the setup here. This is the test tube. Inside the test tube, there is a glass bowl soaked in water. This bowl, it is soaked in water, and there is a metal sample. This test tube is sealed so that the hydrogen gas it should not escape from the test tube. There is a delivery tube which bends into a water tumbler, and above this there is an inverted test tube kept here in which water is present. Okay, as you all know that hydrogen is a colorless and odorless gas, so we can't find out whether which gas is produced, and we cannot identify the gas produced here. So in order to collect the hydrogen gas, this kind of setup is made here. Okay, so the bubble formation shows that hydrogen gas is produced here. So let's conduct the experiment here. See here, whatever the metal is given to you, whether it is aluminium, iron, or zinc, you can keep it here. And when we are going to heat this glass wool, the water present in this glass wool will get converted into steam, and this steam will get reaction with the metal sample provided here. And when this metal sample it reacts with the steam, or you can say the water vapor, hydrogen gas is produced, and the produced hydrogen gas passes through this bend tube into this glass tumbler, and it comes over the bent tube and it gets collected here. Okay, so the hydrogen gas which is collecting in this test tube can be collected afterwards. Okay, so this is the setup. Now let's see the reactions. You can see aluminium, when it reacts with water, it gives aluminium oxide. Along with that, hydrogen gas is released. In the same way, iron, it reacts with water and forms iron oxide, and hydrogen gas is released. Here also zinc, it reacts with water and produces zinc oxide, and hydrogen gas is released. Okay, so I hope all of you understood the reaction of metals with water. Now let's see the third type. In the third type, we have to see the reaction of metals with acid. You can see here metals, they react with acids and they form salt and hydrogen gas. Okay. Aluminium, magnesium, iron and zinc, they react with dilute sulfuric acid or hydrochloric acid to form sulfate or chloride salts of metals. Hydrogen gas is liberated in this reaction. Okay, you can see here in this reaction also hydrogen gas is released. Now let's see the setup here. You can see here, this is the experimental setup here. This is the test tube. In this test tube, whatever the metal is provided to you for the testing, we have to keep it here. We have to mix it with the acid like dilute HCl here, and then it is again sealed here so that the gas produced should not escape, and it is again collected in the glass tumbler with the help of a delivery tube. And here you can see soap bubbles are formed because of formation of gas. Okay, so here you can see in the picture when the reaction between the zinc granules, here zinc is provided, zinc granules, when they react with the dilute HCl, a gas is produced, and with the help of this delivery tube the gas is collected in the glass tumbler, and here glass from the glass tumbler the gas escapes in the form of soap bubbles, and the gas produced, if you are going to take a burning candle nearby this gas, it burns with a crackling sound, it burns with a cracking sound, and this cracking sound proves that the hydrogen gas is produced here. Okay, now you can see here when the zinc granules, they are reacting with the dilute hydrochloric acid, such kind of bubbles are formed here. These bubbles, they show that hydrogen gas is produced. Now let's see the reaction here. Zinc plus hydrochloric acid, it produces zinc chloride, that is salt, and hydrogen gas is released. If we are going to look at the reactivity series, we can see the reactivity of these elements. Out of magnesium, aluminium, zinc, and iron, magnesium is the highly reactive, and after that, aluminium, zinc, and then iron. So you have to remember these reactivity series here. Now look at the reaction of magnesium metal with hydrochloric acid. You can see here in the test tube hydrochloric acid and magnesium ribbon is placed, and when the reaction takes place we can see such kind of appearance in the test tube, and this shows that magnesium chloride salt and hydrogen gas is released here. Okay, in the same way, if we are going to do the same reaction with the with aluminium metal, you can see the aluminium foil which we use at our home for packing of the food. So the same aluminium foil is used here, and when we put hydrochloric acid in the beaker, the reaction takes place, but this reaction is very slow initial reaction. Okay, initially the reaction is very slow, and you can see here aluminium, it reacts with hydrochloric acid and forms aluminium chloride and hydrogen gas. Now the same reaction with iron. When iron, it reacts with hydrochloric acid, it forms iron chloride, and along with that hydrogen gas is released, and you can see such kind of appearance in the test tube. Okay. Now the fourth type of reaction, reaction of metals with nitric acid. Metals, they react with nitric acid to form nitrate salts of metal oxide, and oxides of nitrogen are also formed according to the concentration of nitric oxide. You can see the round bottom flask here. You can see the reaction which is carried out here. You can see the reaction here now. Copper, when it reacts with concentrated nitric acid, it gives copper nitrate plus nitric oxide, and hydro water is released here. Okay, after that When the same copper it is reacted with dilute nitric acid, it again produces copper nitrate, but here 2NO in place of 2NO2 is formed and water is produced. So this is the reaction for metals with nitric oxide. Now move on to the next thing. This is aqua regia. What is aqua regia? Aqua regia is freshly prepared solution of concentrated hydrochloric acid and concentrated nitric acid in the ratio 3:1. You can see here, if we are going to make 400 ml of solution, in this we have to take 300 ml nitric acid and 100 ml hydrochloric acid. The ratio always should be 3:1. If you are going to take 3 parts of nitric acid, you have to take 1 part of hydrochloric acid. So this ratio is fixed, you can't change it. And it is highly corrosive and fuming liquid. It is one of the few reagents which can dissolve the noble metals like gold and platinum. Okay, as we know that gold and platinum, they have very high melting point, so they are not able to dissolve in water and other solvents. So for them, a special kind of reagent called as aqua regia is made so that they can be melted. Okay. Now, the next type, reaction of metals with salts of other metals. Okay, this is the activity. You have to understand this activity. Now look here. In this activity, we need apparatus like copper wire, iron nail, beaker or test tube, etc. Chemicals required here are aqueous solution of ferrous sulfate and copper sulfate. Now what is the procedure? Look at the figure here. There are two test tubes taken. In the one test tube, we have taken copper sulfate solution. The copper sulfate solution is bluish in color, and in this test tube, we are keeping a iron nail. Iron nail is kept in copper sulfate solution. And now look at the other test tube. In the other test tube, there is a copper wire, and this copper wire, it is dipped in a ferrous sulfate solution. So two test tubes are kept here with different solutions and different substances placed in it. Now we have to look at the observation. The first question here asked is, in which test tube a reaction has taken place, whether in the first test tube or in the second test tube. So the reaction takes place in the test tube that contains iron nail in copper sulfate solution. You remember the test tube, the blue colored solution of copper sulfate in which iron nail was present. So in this test tube, reaction will take place. So how do you recognize that a reaction has taken place? The blue color of copper sulfate turns colorless. So when the reaction takes place, the blue colored solution of copper sulfate will turn to light green in color, and the iron nail will be covered with red brown layer of copper metal or iron nail. This kind of change will take place in the first test tube, and this change will show that the reaction is taking place in the test tube. And why this reaction takes place in this test tube? Because iron displaces the copper from copper sulfate, and it is an example of displacement reaction. Okay, so what happens in the test tube? We kept iron nail in copper sulfate solution, which was bluish in color, and this iron, because it is highly reactive than the copper, it displaces copper from the solution, and because of which we get a ferrous sulfate solution which is slightly green in color, and a layer of copper is deposited on iron nail. This change will take place in the test tube. And if we are going to look at the other test tube in which copper wire was placed in ferrous sulfate solution. In this case, there will be no reaction. Why reaction will not take place? Because copper is less reactive than iron, and a less reactive metal is not able to displace other metal from the compound. Okay, because copper is less reactive, so it cannot displace iron from the iron sulfate solution, and that's why there will be no reaction taking place in the second test tube. Okay, now we studied all the chemical properties of metals. Now let's revise them. Metals, these are the all metals that are given here. We have studied the reaction of these metals with air, with water, and with acid. And what we got got from there that sodium and potassium they react vigorously with water, oh sorry, air, and they form metal oxides. But calcium, magnesium, aluminium, zinc, and iron they burn with decreasing vigor. That means their reactivity is slow as compared to sodium and potassium. They form metal oxides, but their reactivity is low. Okay, but if we are going to look at lead, copper, and mercury, they react slowly to form an oxide layer. They react only when they are heated. Okay, they react very slowly. But if we look at the noble elements like silver and gold, there is no reaction taking place here. Now let's move on to the reaction with water. So look here. So potassium, sodium, and calcium, all these three, they react with cold water to form hydrogen gas and metal hydroxide. Okay, and the other elements like magnesium, aluminum, zinc, and iron, they react with steam only to form hydrogen gas and metal oxide. And what about the other metals like lead, copper, mercury, silver, and gold? They do not show any kind of reaction with water. Now look at the acid reaction with acids. So you can see here all these elements from potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, aluminium, zinc, and iron. All these reactions they react dilute acid to form hydrogen gas, and here metal A replaces hydrogen in compound to form a salt. Other elements like lead, copper, mercury, they react with concentrated acid. Metal replaces hydrogen to make a salt. Some acids decompose into NO2 and H2O. And silver and gold do not show any kind of reactions. As we saw here that all the metals, their reactivity is not same. Some of the metals they react very fast, some of them they react moderately, and some they do not react. Right? Now let's see the reactivity series of metals. The reactivity of all metals is not same. The display of salts of other metals is help in determining the reactivity of metals. If a metal A displaces another metal B from the solution of its salt, then it means that metal A is more reactive than metal B. Look at the reaction. We are going to react with metal A and salt solution of metal B. Look at the reaction. If metal A is more reactive than B, then only metal A will replace metal B. Okay, so if metal A is more reactive, it is replacing metal B. So in the salt solution in place of B, what we will get? We will get salt solution of metal A, and metal B will be displaced here. Okay, now, scientists have developed the reactivity series by doing many experiments of displacement reaction. The arrangement of metals in the increasing or decreasing order of reactivity is called reactivity series of metals. So this is the definition of reactivity series of metals. We have to learn this definition. Now, metal reactivity, highly reactive metals, moderately reactive metals, and less reactive metals. Now let's see here. You can see potassium, sodium, lithium, calcium. All these four metals they react vigorously with water. They react vigorously with water and they form metal oxides. But calcium, magnesium, aluminium, zinc, and iron, they react slowly with mercury, silver, copper, magnesium, aluminium, zinc, and iron. All these react vigorously with water. They react slowly with mercury, silver, copper, magnesium, aluminium, zinc, and iron. All these react vigorously with water. They react slowly with mercury, silver, copper, magnesium, aluminium, zinc, and iron. All these react vigorously with water. They react slowly with mercury, silver, copper, magnesium, aluminium, zinc, and iron. Look at the least one: copper, mercury, silver. These metals they do not react with water. They do not react with acids. They only react with oxygen. And when we are talking about the gold, the noble element, it does not react with water, not with acid, not with oxygen. It has the lowest reactivity. So you can see here the reactivity series given here. The metals which are at the top, they are highly reactive. As we are going down, the reactivity of these metals, it goes on decreasing. So the gold metal, it is at the lowest point. That means it has the lowest reactivity, right? So I hope all of you understood the reactivity series. Now let's see the next type of reaction. Reaction of metals with non-metals. So noble gases like helium, neon, argon, they do not take part in the chemical reactions. The outermost shell of noble gases being complete, they are chemically inert because we know that if the outermost shell of an atom is complete, then it does not react, right? Why any element it reacts? In order to complete its outermost shell. So the outermost shell of an atom is chemically inert. So it does not react with oxygen. It does not react with hydrogen. It does not react with nitrogen. It does not react with oxygen. It does not react with hydrogen. So why do these metals do this? Why non-metals do this? Why? They need electrons. Sorry, students, because of network issue, it was disconnected. Okay, so we were discussing the reaction of metals with non-metals. So as you can see on the screen, there is a metal named sodium and the other is fluorine atom. So you can see the electronic configuration of sodium, it is 2, 8 and 1, and the electronic configuration of fluorine, it is 2, 8 and 7. So as we know that sodium atom, it is a metal and metals, they have tendency to lose electrons very easily, and non-metals, they have tendency to accept electrons very easily. So here sodium atom, it donates its one electron to the fluorine atom, and because of this giving process, the sodium atom, it acquires one positive charge, and fluorine atoms, as it takes one electron, after taking one electron is excess here now, and because of which it gets one negative charge. And here sodium ion, that is a cation, positively charged ions, they are called as cation, and chloride ion, that is an anion, negatively charged ions are called as anion. Both of them, they bound together with ionic bond, and the compound sodium chloride is formed, right? So here sodium chloride is formed as sodium metal gives away one electron while the non-metal fluorine takes up one electron. So in this way, the reaction between metal and non-metal takes place. Metal gives one electron to the non-metal, and non-metal takes one electron from the metal and forms an ionic bond, right? Because here the bond is formed between two ions, one cation and other is anion. In the same way, magnesium and potassium, they also form the ionic compounds like magnesium chloride and potassium chloride respectively. Now, let's see the chemical properties of non-metals. Non-metals, they have less similarity in physical and chemical properties. They accept electrons and form negatively charged ions called anions, hence called electronegative elements. As metals, they are called electropositive elements because they form positive ions. Similarly, non-metals, they form negatively charged ions, and that's why they are called electronegative elements. You can see here the formation of an ion. This is an atom of fluorine. Fluorine has atomic number 17 and its electronic configuration is 287. Its outermost shell is incomplete. It has only 7 electrons, but it should be 8, right? So it has protons 17, electrons 17. That means the number of positive charges and number of negative charges, they are equal, and as a whole the atom is electrically neutral. Total charge gets 0, right? Now in order to complete its outermost shell, fluorine, it takes one electron from some other element like sodium. You can see here it takes one electron from some other atom, and because of which its outermost shell gets completed. Now it is 288, and now fluorine ion, you can see it is chloride ion now. It was first fluorine atom, now it is chloride ion after taking one electron from some other atom. Now it has 17 electrons and protons. It has 17 protons and electrons. Now it has 18. So because of it, it has total extra charge of one electron, right? And here fluorine, it takes one electron and forms one chloride ion. Now let's see the reaction of non-metals with oxygen. Non-metals combine with oxygen to form acidic oxides and sometimes neutral oxides. You can see here when carbon, it reacts with oxygen and complete combustion takes place, it produces carbon dioxide, and this carbon dioxide, it is acidic in nature. Now other reaction, when this carbon, it reacts with oxygen and here partial combustion takes place, in that case, carbon monoxide is produced, and this carbon monoxide, it is neutral in nature. Sulfur, it reacts with oxygen, and when complete combustion takes place, it produces sulfur dioxide, which is acidic in nature. So we can see here when non-metals, they react with oxygen at different conditions, the compounds, or you can say the metal oxides which are formed, they may be acidic in nature, they may be neutral in nature. Reaction of non-metals with water. Non-metals, they do not react with water except the halogen. Chlorine on dissolving in water gives the following reaction. So most of the non-metals, they do not react with water, but the halogens, as they are highly reactive, chlorine, it reacts with water. So you can see the reaction. Chlorine, when it reacts with water, it forms hypochlorous acid and hydrochloric acid. In the same way, reaction of dilute acids with non-metals. So non-metals, they do not react with dilute acids except halogens, as in the case of water was there. The same way, the non-metals, they do not react with acids also except halogens. So look at the reaction of chlorine with dilute hydrochloric acid or hydrobromic acid. They react with both. So chlorine, it reacts with hydrobromic acid and forms hydrochloric acid and bromine. Then fourth type of reaction, reaction of non-metals with hydrogen. Non-metals, they react with hydrogen under certain conditions such as proper temperature, pressure, use of catalyst, etc. And they produce given compounds. As you can see, sulfur, it reacts with hydrogen and forms hydrogen sulfide. Nitrogen, it reacts with hydrogen and forms ammonia. Okay, now let's see the summary. Today we finished chemical properties of metals and non-metals. So we studied physical properties of metals and non-metals. We studied metal gives different colored flame with flame test. Metals react with oxygen to form corresponding metal oxide. With water, metals form oxides with liberation of hydrogen gas. Metals react with dilute sulfuric acid or hydrochloric acid to form sulfate or chloride salts with liberation of hydrogen gas. Nitrate salts are formed on reaction of metals with nitric acids. The arrangement of metals in increasing or decreasing order of reactivity is called reactivity series of metals. Metals react with non-metals to form ionic compounds. Non-metals, they react with oxygen to form acidic or neutral oxide. Generally, non-metals, they do not react with water or dilute acids except for halogens. Non-metals react with hydrogen at certain conditions like temperature, pressure, catalyst, etc. That's all for today's class. Now let's see the evaluation part. In evaluation part, the first question is metals react with oxygen to form. The answer is metal oxide. The metals aluminium, iron, and zinc do not react with cold or hot water, but they react with steam to form their oxides. Non-metals are also called electronegative metals. Name the categories into which metals can be classified based on the reactivity. We studied that there are three categories in which metals they are divided. The first one is highly reactive metals, the second one is moderately reactive metals, the third is less reactive metals. Moving on to question number 5, sodium is always kept in kerosene. Why? Because on exposure to air, sodium readily catches fire. Therefore, to prevent accident, it is kept in kerosene. I hope all of you understood the chapter. If you have any doubt, you can ask. Yes, anybody have any doubt? Yes, Samira Tako, unmute yourself and ask what doubt you have.
बाबू
हेलो मिस।
Yes,
मिस आप एक बार हमें बता सकते हैं कि हम लोग रिएक्शन को देख के कैसे पहचानेंगे वो एसिडिक है कि बेस मतलब बना रहे हैं?
एसिडिक है कि बेसिक बना रहे हैं? ओके ओके, वेट अ सेकेंड. हाँ, in some of the cases you have to learn it, but at some of the places you can identify it very easily whether it is acidic or basic. For example, in case of metals, if I will take you the example here, the first one, wait. Okay, as in the first case, in case of metals, I told you that metal oxides, they are acidic in nature, right? Metal oxides, they are acidic in nature. Clear? Sorry, basic in nature. Metal oxides, they are basic in nature. So as you can see here, sodium hydroxide, as I told you, if OH group is present here, this OH group, it is wherever it is present, you will find it that they are basic in nature. Correct? So you have to learn here that sodium oxides, when it reacts with water, what it do, it forms hydroxide, right? So hydroxides, they are basic in nature. So just by observing this formula, you can find out that they are basic in nature. Why they are basic in nature, sodium oxides? Because they form basic hydroxide, right? In this way, you can identify. So you have to learn here that sodium, or you can say the metal oxides, they are acidic in, sorry, basic in nature. Or you can see, you can learn the table also. I showed you the table, na, right? You can see here all the metal oxides, they are basic in nature. Basic oxides, you can see here: potassium oxide, magnesium oxide, iron oxide, sodium oxide, calcium oxide, copper oxide. All of them, they are basic in nature. So as you can see, यहाँ पर अगर आपको दिखाई दे रहा है, you can see here metals are there. So if metal oxides are there, they are basic in nature. In place of these metals, if non-metals are present, like nitrogen is present, sulfur is present, carbon is present, all of them, they are non-metals. If non-metals are there, non-metal oxides, they are acidic in nature. So some of the things you have to learn, and after that you can identify whether it is acidic or basic in nature. Only these two are the exceptions. They are amphoteric in nature. Okay.
मैम
Anyone else have
एम्फोटेरिक इन
any doubt?
नेचर मीन्स
Amphoteric in nature means they act as acid or basic oxides, both. Sometimes they act as
ओके
acidic oxides, sometimes they act as basic oxides. That's why it is called as amphoteric oxide. You see the word here, ampho. You have studied also amphibians in your biology. Amphi means those who live in both land and water. So यहाँ पर भी amphi means both, which act as both acidic oxides as well as basic oxides, right?
जो
So
मीन्स
amphoteric oxide.
रिएक्शन में अगर HOH या फिर ऑक्साइड फॉर्म होगा तो मतलब वो बेसिक इन नेचर है ना, मतलब बेसिक बेसिक रिएक्शन ना।
हाँ बेसिक है, बट डिपेंड्स कि वो ऑक्साइड किसके साथ है. इफ इट इज विद मेटल ऑक्साइड्स, दे आर बेसिक इन नेचर. बट व्हेन यू आर गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट नॉन मेटल ऑक्साइड्स, व्हाट आई सेड, अगर यहाँ पे मेटल की जगह पे नॉन मेटल होता, लाइक कार्बन, नाइट्रोजन, सल्फर, राइट, सो दे आर नॉन मेटल्स. तो अगर वो होता है यहाँ पर ऑक्सीजन के साथ, देन ऑल द नॉन मेटल ऑक्साइड्स, दे आर एसिडिक इन नेचर. अंडरस्टूड? लाइक
ओके मैम,
कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड, sulfur dioxide, they are acidic in nature. Okay.
यस मैम, थैंक यू।
Okay. Anyone else have any doubt? Three hands are there. Yusuf Khan, yes, unmute yourself. What doubt you have?
इस मुझे समझ में नहीं आया वाला, अब केमिकल ऊपर से पढ़ाते ना।
Which one? Which one you didn't understood? Because today we studied all chemical properties of metals and non-metals. What you didn't understood? If you are going to ask me any particular type of reaction, I can explain. But exactly, I should know ना what you didn't understood. क्या नहीं समझ में आया आपको? Any particular reaction? Yes. Which reaction you didn't understood? Yusuf? Anybody else have any doubt? No? Okay, then we will continue the chapter in the next session. By then, take care everyone. Ma'am? Hello?